So I was like that kid back in school selling cigarettes, selling copied VHS tapes. That's a clue to how old I am.
I guess it's not just how you design and deliver the project. It's also about the customer service that goes on.
Definitely, yeah.
Behind the scenes.
Work on the goal, forget about everything else, and eventually you'll have the compound effect, I suppose, where it's just, and then slowly, I feel like we're just starting to feel the effects now of just being blinkered and working. Learn by doing, but just jump 2 feet in, you'll work it out.
Stuff doesn't happen just in your head. You have to take
the amount
action.
of things we've learned just by going, we'll work it out.
Yeah.
Still doing it. Let's still do that now.
Yeah, you and me both. Yeah.
But I said, everyone wants an ensuite. And she said, well, actually, I've got a new boyfriend and I don't want to be going in the toilet in the same room that he's in. So I'm like, I never thought about that.
Wow,
So yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of the Property Developer Show, the podcast. Today, I'm joined by Lee from Passive Property. He's a HMO landlord as well as a new developer.
Yeah.
New
We're
developer.
about to start, yeah.
Commercial to resi.
Yes, so C3 to, it's currently at offices to C4 HMO with commercial on the bottom.
Amazing. In Wrexham.
Yes.
Amazing. So I guess going back to when you first got into property, we'll normally start there with the podcast, kind of give people an insight to how you kind of got into it and then how your sort of careers sort of evolved. So let's kind of start at the beginning.
Yeah, so obviously I've listened to your podcast quite a bit now and all the others. Without sounding too cliche, I've got a similar backstory. So I was like that kid back in school selling cigarettes, selling copied VHS tapes. That's a clue to how old I am. And then I've just always had that infatuation with money, I suppose. But I had no one around me that was an entrepreneur or a business owner. My parents were hard workers, but I just didn't have that sort of financial education. And then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, as everyone else does, and that just flicked the switch in me. And I went straight to my partner, Ceri. We wrote down assets, liabilities, had a whole list of liabilities and very little assets, and we just started working on that. And the first house that I bought was a 3-bedroom house, and I let out 2 of the rooms to my friends. So that covered our mortgage and the bills, and that was sort of my first illegal HMO. And so I sort of understood the sort of the power of renting out individual rooms from that. And then from there, I had a friend as well that I worked with who, he was part-time in work. I work for Kellogg's, the cereal company.
Okay.
But he was part-time and he was like, everyone's like, he's got 20 odd houses and that blew my mind. Like, how is that possible to have that many properties? And so he was not, I wouldn't say a mentor, but someone that I could go to and just ask, so what's BRR? What's the refinance? How does that work? And so as soon as I found that out, I let out my house that I was living in, moved in with my partner, Ceri's mum. So I moved in with my mother-in-law, so proper dedication to the cause. We saved up for our first house that we bought together, but we purposely bought a rundown place so that we could add value to it, refinance, and then we got a pot of cash to start with our first investment property. We quickly realised that we didn't have enough money to go and buy a HMO and renovate it to the standard that we'd be happy with. So we decided to flip a property first. So we flipped our first property, sort of doubled our cash, and then went on with a small 4-bed HMO just to test the water. That went well, and we just went on from there. So like from the last 4 or 5 years, we've been in a proper growth phase, and we've had some investment as well, which has helped us scale much quicker. And we focused mainly on pre-existing HMOs because in Wrexham or in Wales, it's not Article 4, but they've removed all the permitted development. So you can't just turn a house into a HMO. So what we've been doing is buying pre-existing HMOs and renovating them, refinancing. We've been getting commercial valuations on the sort of 5-6 beds, purely because we knew that we were just concentrating on cash flow. That was our main goal. Until sort of we've done that now. Our main goal was to basically have enough cash flow to fund our lifestyles, or I used to say enough cash flow to fund Ceri's lifestyle, and then enough to sustain the business as well. So we've done that. In January this year, I went more full-time into property. So I didn't completely quit. I could have, but I decided just everything we've done has been sort of systemized. So I went part-time, but I'm only there about I don't know, six times a month, something like that.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I've gone 100 miles an hour this year. And so we're slowly moving away from the cash flow side and now starting to think more about consolidation and more capital based rather than cash flow. So
What does that kind of look like then? Obviously from, I mean, early days, it's all about leveraging. It's all about maximizing what you've got, trying to grow as quickly as you can.
yeah.
Once you obviously get there, it's then that transition to go the other way, which is to consolidate and preserve. What sort of things are you putting into place now to kind of make
well,
that
it's exactly that, isn't it? So we've the last 5 or 6 years we've been in a growth phase. We're slowly moving into a consolidation phase where we need to bring the average of our portfolio loan to value down. But rather than, I'm not going to be paying off the existing debt that we have, more about how the future purchases will have a lower loan to value. And so the average across the portfolio will come down. And then hopefully we're going to focus, or the plan is to focus more on flipping. So I don't know how that's going to look yet. The way I'm leaning into is, because we've got pretty good at HMOs now, I think we do them to a high standard. We get higher rental value. We've got quite a good reputation in our area. I feel like I could sell up and running functioning HMOs to investors. And I feel like I know what it'd be worth on the back end before we even started it. So I feel like that's a good route that we could go down. But in all honesty, I think I'm open to anything that, can just create capital for us. Rather than just focusing on the cash flow now.
I think that's the biggest thing in property. I mean, I've got a whole episode on one of the mistakes. I don't really want to call it that, but one of the things I wish I did differently was focus on flipping houses earlier rather than trying to build the portfolio. Because I've kind of built portfolio and then realised actually my time's better spent elsewhere than being a landlord. Number one, sold all that. But what I wish I'd done is started to flip houses early on, particularly, I mean, kind of guessing your situation here, but not coming from money, obviously from what you've said.
Yeah.
You've got to kind of build that resource, which is so difficult.
It was purely just to, we wanted to create time, really. We wanted to not have to go to work to earn our money. And so that has been the sole goal, which I say we've now done. And so that was why we focused on that so much. But like you say, you do end up being quite heavily leveraged. I'm not afraid to say that. You're having 75% loan to value mortgages. When you add on a 4, 5, 6% product fee, you're then 80+%. We're getting high valuations because we wanted to pull out as much as we can to go again. But what the properties that we have now, what they're worth in 20 years is irrelevant to us because that's not why we bought them. But we're aware that we do have to think about that, and that's sort of the road we're walking down now. But that's like I say, it was purely because that was our aim, was to replace our job income. Really,
I think it comes down to what you want out from property.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
And I think the HMO route, the SA route, maybe social housing, you kind of might put in that category. The stuff that's going to cash flow positive to take you out of your job, to give you the time to put into growing the actual portfolio.
Yes.
I think it's important to understand what your reasons are to get into property in the first place and how you're going to use it. Because I think there's almost a misconception to how, like, property as a whole, but I see quite influential business people say, property is not a good investment. But arguably it's not an investment, it's like multiple different investments. It depends what you're doing.
It's a business in its own right, isn't it?
Exactly.
If you're thinking about it as an investment for the future, or it's completely different to, like you say, SA or HMO. We've got service accommodation as well. Decided not to follow that route. There was even more moving parts of that. And it's not something we do again. But yeah, I think, like you say, it depends what you want, and there's very different strategies and very different outcomes depending on what you want. So yeah.
What, in your opinion, then, do you think makes a successful HMO landlord? And also a success, two parts to that question: successful landlord and also successful conversion to attract tenants.
I think providing a good quality product. So in our area, we were lucky we got in at a good time. most of the HMOs were shitholes. In all honesty, they were real dives, and that's why they got such a bad name. So I do understand it to an extent when people are like, we had a woman last week, we just finished a renovation. She's like, one of the neighbours, why are you doing all this work for another DOS house? And I'm like, it's not, half our tenants are like doctors and engineers, and we provide a nice product and they pay a little bit more for it, but it's got such a bad reputation. So yeah, I think providing a good product, communication. So we try, and if there's anything wrong, we're on it straight away within 24 hours normally.
You self-manage then, do you?
Yes, that's not something I'm going to carry on doing. It's just because, again, the focus was so much on the cash flow. I thought if you're paying like 10, 12% to an agent, it was money that I felt like we could have reused. But now we've got to a point where we've got that many ASTs that it's going to make more sense for us to employ someone in-house than pay an agent. We'll get more out of them than just managing. They can do some HR stuff and that for me as well. So yeah, I think communication, having a good product, and we're very particular about who we put in the houses as well. So we try and fit, each house has its own demographic. So if we wouldn't put an 18-year-old girl with a 40-year-old man, we try and make sure part of the viewing process, we do all viewings in person as well to get a good feel for the prospective tenant. And how they would fit in the house. So it's creating a community, I suppose, as well. Each house has a WhatsApp group. We all talk, that most of them socialize. So yeah, I think there's a...
So it's building a community, I guess. Well, I suppose it's a tactical approach to who your tenants are.
Yes. And we're trying to, I suppose, create a brand as well. So now when our houses do go on to any advertising board, when they see it's a passive property one, they know it's going to be to a good standard. So that was part of the reasoning behind having branding.
What's your kind of thinking behind like the layout of the house? And obviously 5-6 bed, are you, I guess, to make them more desirable for the doctors, and what sort of things are you putting in place?
So the en-suites, everyone wants an en-suite. Apart from, we had a girl the other week who, we had a bathroom separate to, it wasn't a shared bathroom, it was for their own room, but we call it an off-suite.
Yeah.
But I said, everyone wants an en-suite. And she said, well, actually, I've got a new boyfriend and I don't want to be going in the toilet in the same room that he's in. So I'm like, I never thought about that.
Wow,
so yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah. So not everyone wants an en-suite, but most people do want an en-suite. So we try and, provided we can keep the good size room, we try and make sure all rooms have en-suites. It's not always possible, but, and if we do have a shared bathroom, it's only one between two. So that's the main thing. And then the social rooms, we try and do them to a good standard. I think that's the main thing is the en-suites. And then the finish. We don't just do magnolia walls. We do paneling, or we do nice features so that it feels more homely for the person living in it.
Super. So moving on then to sort of the present day, commercial conversion. Where did you find the deal? What is the deal? And what's the exit on the deal?
So we found it was on Rightmove. It's 8 offices currently. We've had to go through planning for the last 7-8 months.
Right. Wow.
It's a grade 2 listed building, so that's made it a little bit more complicated. Sure. But it's our first time doing full planning for a conversion like this, and it's actually ran relatively smoothly. So we had a few issues with the floor plan. We were going to take out some chimney breasts, but because it's grade 2, they wanted to maintain as much of the fabric of the building as possible. So we had to just change them around, and then just your normal stuff, noise surveys and stuff. So that's ran relatively smoothly. We bought it for 147,500, so below the threshold, no stamp duty, anything like that. We've got an estimated GDV of £360,000, I think. It's going to be a 6-bedroom, hopefully 10-person HMO, because we're having to make some adjustments. Currently it's 6 and 6, but the rooms are big enough for double occupancy, so we're trying to do 6 and 10, just to get a bit more out of it. And downstairs is still going to be an office because the council wanted to keep a commercial element to the building. And so we may use that office for ourselves. I'm not sure yet, just because I said we might take on, or we're definitely going to take on. So we might use that space for us, and also to have a bit of a presence on quite a busy road in town. I think it'll be good for us. So I'm looking forward to starting on that now. And previously, before, I've project managed quite a bit. I say that loosely. I've met a lot of project managers recently, and I realised that is a skill and a job in itself. I've got some tradesmen together for the previous ones. So, because I know they'll give me stick, they're like, you're not a project manager. This time we have a proper, like, the schedule works is an in-depth one for a guy that I know who's does commercial renovations a lot as a surveyor. So we're really making sure everything is ticked off on this one. And they put it in the news, 2 of the newspapers, or the online newspapers, I think, hoping to entice a little bit of hate. And it was actually quite positively taken on, because people were saying, well, what are you going to do with them? They're empty. They're in a perfect location in the centre of town. So I was quite shocked by that, actually. Normally it just gets hammered when they put them on Facebook and stuff. So yeah, at the moment, it's all gone relatively smoothly. Wow. And that's such a big uplift as well, from 147 to potentially 360s on just the 6. So it's going to be probably more like 400 if we get the extra occupants.
What's the bill cost, approximately?
Yeah, I'm not that much. So I'm hoping for under 120,000. Okay. We're lucky in the fact that the building lends itself to a HMO. There's nothing structural at all happening. Because it's grade 2, they want us to keep so much stuff. So the skirting boards and stuff like that are all in good condition. So they actually want us to keep them, because they're the old fashioned. Because they want us to keep so much, it's actually helping us. So yeah, I'm hoping to keep them costs down, because I've had to explain this a few times I literally this morning. No, I recorded one earlier, because people have been saying you can't do a refurb for £50,000, for example. But I think that's them assuming that I'm doing a full conversion, whereas we've been buying pre-existing. So our refurb costs have been far lower than most.
Of course.
So that is like something I have to explain to people. This already set up as HMOs, most of the ones we've done, whereas this one is more of a full refurb. So we've got the sprinkler systems, the grade A fire alarm systems, all stuff like that.
How did you find it? When was it built, the building? Do you know?
It was the first commercial street, or the first street in Wrexham, basically, is what they've been saying. So, like, I don't know, 1800s at some point.
So is it because obviously you're gonna have to chase a new wiring in, stuff like that. Are you having to do like for like with the plastering? Like what?
So we're allowed to replaster and stuff, because every single wall is wood chip throughout. There's 3 stories, 8 offices. Every single wall is wood chip.
Right.
And we don't know what it's going to be like underneath.
Yeah.
It's going to have a full rewire through full everything. But yeah, if we're going to so that side of stuff I'll leave to people of more experience than me.
Yeah, the experts.
Yeah. I want as little involvement now, and from that side, I used to really get my hands dirty. I want nothing to do with it now.
Yeah. I think you get to that kind of scale where it becomes professional, not just, I've got a few trades together and we delivered a HMO. It's schedule, QS in, tying everyone in, contracts, JCTs, all that, which obviously you should be doing on smaller stuff anyway, but most people don't, whether they admit to that or not.
We've not done it on a lot of the early stuff. We didn't do anything like that. We didn't even do a schedule of works on the early ones, but like now we have to put contracts in place, especially for like, just for time things. Like, so if you don't finish on time, you're getting a penalty against the fees, because otherwise people just take the piss, don't they? And then, like, say you're dealing with big numbers, and if you're dealing with private investors, you need everything to be running like a well-oiled machine, don't you? So
well, I'm touch wood that despite all the good luck you've had with it so far, that kind of continues and doesn't go to shit in the refurb. But, I'm sure it will be, particularly if you've got project managers and QS on it should go relatively smoothly. So what sort of things, when you're kind of looking at a deal then, what sort of things are you kind of looking for that makes a kind of ideal HMO, whether it be layout, area, demographic of tenant, what sort of things are you sort of considering?
Well, we've been quite, I want to say lucky again. It's luck. You make your own luck, don't you? But we've had a lot of direct to vendor, and that has been through meeting landlords. So I know 2 landlords that have large portfolios in Wrexham that live in Bangkok. They're at an age now where they're offloading.
Wow.
So they ring it and offer me every single time before they do it. So I've been taking a lot of them.
How many properties are you up to now?
We're on 8.
Right.
Yeah. So plus the service accommodation. So We've got, I think we've got 4 in the pipeline. So by March next year, it should be up to 12, 13.
That 8 including your commercial as well?
No, that's going to be, that'll be in the 9th, yeah.
Right, nice.
So I think it's like 32 tenants at the minute.
Wow,
with the
which
service
is
accommodation.
enough to keep you busy.
Yeah. It's too much really now, which is why I know I need to. So I've just said, because I knew I was going to 100 miles an hour this year, and I've now got the time. I just want to feel like by the end of the year, I've burnt out to an extent to know that I've really given it my all, and then that's when it's like, right, we need to completely change tack now. We need to, someone needs to be employed. We need to, like I say, go down that other route of the capital building, but. Yeah, I went off.
I lost you. It was my fault. Lost your train of thought. So you were talking about the guys over in Bangkok that were offering you, and
that one. So we've because another way we've got direct to vendor, which I don't hear many people talking about, is because we provide really high standard accommodation, especially in comparison to what's already in our area. We've got quite a good reputation. Quite a good relationship with the licensing department.
Okay.
So they're in and out of HMOs every single day, all day, inspecting them, because we have to have 12-month inspections in Wrexham after you get your license. And so now if anyone mentioned, any agents or landlords during these inspections mentioned to them about selling, she passes on their details to us or our details to them. So that's been another good route for us getting direct to vendor.
Amazing. That's probably a really good tip, that is, actually. I've never heard that one before.
No, really. Get on board. Hope it's okay. I hope she's allowed. She won't listen anyway.
Well, hopefully not. We'll take that bit out. That's for my purposes. Yeah. Amazing. So I guess kind of probably my fault for interrupting your train of thought. When you are looking at new deals, obviously you've spoke to the vendor, you've kind of looked at the deal. Other than the fact that obviously you're based in Wrexham and it needs to be an existing HMO, like what other things are you kind of looking for in terms of what makes the ideal kind of property?
So most of ours are big old Victorian type houses. The rooms are huge. It's the floor plan really. The overall square meterage of the property, we know straight away from looking at it what I can fit into it, if you like, but we won't squeeze in either. We like to have decent sized rooms.
What sort of square, do you do square footage and meters?
Square meters. So I think like the minimum is like, with a living room in Wrexham's like 6.5.
Yeah.
And the maximum is like 10.
6.5.
So I think most of ours are probably 12 with the ensuite
right, okay.
on top of that. So they're decent size. We do have some smaller ones that share just because the layout, we can't do much with it, but most of them are at least 10, I'd say.
Yeah. Amazing. Do you feel that makes a big difference to the demographic that you're going after?
Yeah, I think it does, but I think the main thing is the finish of the property and also the other tenants that they're living with. We've had so many recently leave HMOs that they're in just because of the people they're living with, and they don't feel safe or they don't feel comfortable. So they're coming over to us now just to be in a safer environment, I suppose, or feel safer, more comfortable in your own home.
Yeah.
So I think it's the finish and the people you're living with is what's made a big difference.
How, let's say hypothetically speaking, how do you maintain that kind of ethos and approach? Let's say that there's a saturation. Obviously Wrexham's a little bit different because you can't get conversions under PD, but we'll use Crewe as an example, which is where I was investing. Basically the university moved out, there was a short-term saturation with HMOs in the market, and the kind of quality of not quality of tenants, that's not the right word, but there was ample stock available for tenants. Kind of in that situation, what I guess metrics have you put into place that would kind of, whether it's the brand, whether it's the marketing you use, what sort of things would you do to protect that kind of outcome from happening?
I think it's just it's the renovation, the standard that we do it is saturated at times.
Okay,
but there's an old school landlord that still remains, basically, I think, and treating it more like a business and treating the tenants as customers, I suppose. I don't know if that's the right word, but they're paying your bills at the end of the day, or they're funding my business. And so it's having that customer service, I think, above and beyond other landlords or other agencies. And that is something that I've worried about, that when we take someone else on, are they going to be able to continue the way I have, having a personal touch? I don't have a personal relationship with them, but I get on well with them, and I'm very responsive.
It's the personal approach, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you that's what is allowing you to get good tenants that has good environments within the household. Because I mean, we had Caroline Patterson on. Obviously, she invests in Chester, which is not too far from Wrexham, and her approach is the same as your approach. I think her exact words were, "I get on with all my tenants. I wouldn't invite them around for dinner because that'd be a bit
exactly
strange.
that, yeah.
But I wouldn't mind inviting them around for dinner if push comes to shove, sort of thing." So I think that if you're tailoring to a higher end market, that's obviously the approach that I'm basing it on the success that you've had in Caroline.
I suppose the starting is the product you're providing, but then it's the aftercare, I suppose, of what you're providing. One of the tenants that I've said that's just moved to us, he failed referencing originally, and it said that it was because he hadn't paid rent. And so I spoke to him, and he explained the reason we didn't pay rent is because the landlord the boiler broke for a month, and so everyone in the house decided we're not going to pay if there's no hot water. And I knew where he'd been staying, so I was like, okay, I believe you. That's fine. And he has been perfectly fine as well. So it's giving people a chance and an understanding. Like I say, it's the aftercare, not just sign the contracts, see you later sort of thing.
Yeah, amazing. I guess this probably episode is orientated to maybe people that do want to get into HMOs or already are in HMOs and maybe want to kind of focus on that higher end market. So that's a good insight. I guess it's not just how you design and deliver the project. It's also about the customer service that goes on behind the scenes. Amazing. What's kind of the approach then from, I guess, the recruitment side of things? What's like the ideal person you're kind of looking for? Because we can maybe get someone to...
I'm not sure. I think someone who's interested in property, I think someone had some sort of background in a estate agency so that they've dealt with... Ideally, I'd like to take someone on that knows more about it than me, someone who's better at it than me, so that they can step straight into the role. I can sort of steer them in the way of our brand and the personal touches that I want, but I also would love them to be able to say, well, this is how I would suggest doing things, and then for me to go, oh, why didn't I think of that? So they say to employ someone that knows more than you, don't they? So I think that's the main thing, with a bit of experience and a keenness to learn as well. To be interested in property would be great.
Makes sense. So to somewhat round the episode off, what would be your top tips for someone that's looking to get into HMO developing?
Well, I think one of the big tips I give, it's relevant to everything, I suppose, and it's something that has served me really well this year, especially, is goal setting. I've set some goals 5 years ago. We hit all them. This year, I changed slightly the goals that I set. So I set more. We did have capital sort of based goals and cash flow goals, but I set more open-ended goals to do with like mindset. And so I wrote down. Last month, I'd done my first ever public speaking, and I've ended up on the podcast today, and that was because I wrote down, one of the goals was to put myself in positions that make me feel uncomfortable, because it's in those positions that we see growth. And had I not written that down, I 100% wouldn't have done the public speaking, and I'm so glad that I did now. I probably wouldn't be here with you. It started. We were in New York. I wrote the goals down. Like end of December, and do you know Jamie York? So he was sat in a cafe sat across from us, and I was like, that's Jamie York. I was like, I should probably go say hello just because it's property interests and stuff. And I was like, oh no, because I'm quite an introvert, so just going to speak to a stranger was like horrible, uncomfortable. And then my partner and my brother were both like, haven't you just written a goal about doing things that make you uncomfortable? And I was like, oh yes, I will. So I went and said hello. And then just from doing that, I think it stemmed on to, right, okay, I'm just going to say yes and try and do as much as I can and put myself out there as much as possible. So when a guy called Tom Edgar at his event asked me if I'd like to speak, I said no. And they said, well, I'll give you the weekend to mull it over. And then I went back and my partner was like, remember what you wrote down? And I was like, yep, I've got to do it. So I changed my mind and said yes. So I think goal setting is a massive one. Write something down, write a long-term goal down, break it down into smaller ones, and then that's when the delayed gratification really comes in. Just work on the goal, forget about everything else, and eventually you'll have that the compound effect, I suppose, where it's just, and then slowly, like I feel like we're just starting to feel the effects now of just being blinkered and working. And I think it's all down to just writing goals and making them real.
Amazing, exciting. The main emphasis on work on your goals. Don't just write your goals.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So like educate yourself is a big one, obviously. And there's so much free content out there now, podcasts, books. I get most of mine just off eBay. And the power of them has been amazing to me. And I never used to read a lot as a kid, but after Rich Dad Poor Dad, I just consumed as much as I could. So that's a massive one. Educate yourself, but also take action on what you've learned. Like you said, that is massive. Learn by doing. Just jump 2 feet in, you'll work it out. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't get analysis paralysis.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
Stuff doesn't happen just in your head. You have to take
the amount
action.
of things we've learned just by going. Oh, we'll work it out.
Yeah,
still doing it. Still do that now.
Yeah, you and me both. Yeah. Even with his podcast.
Yeah.
Great stuff. So if people want to follow the journey or get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
We're mostly active on Instagram. It's passive.property. And we are on Facebook as well, but that's just, it posts what we post on Instagram.
Super.
So yeah, Instagram's the place to find us. And we'll always, if anyone DMs us, I always get back to everybody.
Amazing. Yeah. Hopefully you don't get thousands of DMs.
Oh, I'd like that. Yeah, but maybe.
Great stuff. Well, thank you very much for coming on today.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure. And hopefully, obviously people have got some great value from what you've had to say today, particularly high-end HMO developers. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for tuning in today. Obviously, again, as I say in every episode, if you do listen to the audio version, please do like and subscribe. It helps, obviously on YouTube, and then leave a review on the audio. I got that a bit mixed up, but hopefully you know what I mean. I say it every episode, so you can't miss out. But thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you again very soon. Take care. Goodbye.